I don't have any prepared statement. I'm here to respond to your question.
I understand the order was denied in terms of allowing your folks on site to inspect. Do you have a reaction to that, and why was it so important for you to do the on-site inspection?
Well, we represent a number of the parties who have suffered devastating losses, the loss of family members, very crippling injuries that are going to affect them for the rest of their lives. It's very important for us to determine who is responsible for this. Somebody was playing Russian roulette with the lives of every Minnesotan that crossed that bridge every day. And our job is to dig into this on behalf of the victims and find out who is really accountable. To date, nobody has come forth and accepted any responsibility for what happened. We hope that with competent, qualified, impartial investigators, we'll be able to get to the bottom of this.
Why do you need to be there before? Because I think the judge in his ruling said it's difficult to believe that a walkthrough of the site by 3 lawyers and 2 expert witnesses is likely to discover evidence that will not be discovered by what will undoubtedly be a lengthy and exhaustive investigation by the government. I imagine you take issue with that.
Well, I trust the NTSB to do a very thorough and very comprehensive job in its investigation. It might even do one that's 99% accurate. My clients want more than that, and they don't want their lives and their future well-being to be totally determined by an agency of the federal government, which is also the agency that employed federal bridge inspectors, which also has a close relationship with the Minnesota Department of Transportation.
So are you questioning their impartiality on this?
I am saying that there's experts have different ways of looking at things, and our clients feel more comfortable if there's someone that's operating on their behalf that's competent and qualified, getting a chance to take a look at the evidence. The lawyers aren't going to add a lot in terms of looking at evidence, but certainly the structural engineers, the bridge inspectors that we are bringing into this would have preferred to have been in from the beginning.
What's your next move? I mean, you issued this ruling. What do you do next?
Well, we're involved in continuing to review all of the information which is available public. We are obviously able to review all of the structural diagrams of the bridge, the complete history of the bridge, the background on the private and governmental entities that have been responsible for the investigations in the past, what their findings were, and just how valid their recommendations were. We're looking into facts that they knew, which was that there were structural deficiencies in critical members of this bridge which had no redundancy. And we want to know when they knew that and the actions that were recommended, were they appropriate, and most importantly, what was their timetable? Were they recommending that things be done in the future that should have been done a day later? Should have they altered the weights and loads on this bridge? Should have they even closed this bridge to have made emergency repairs? Those are all of the kind of questions that have to be answered. This was a disaster that simply should not have occurred.
Is it true that the findings of the NTSB cannot be used in lawsuits? And is that part of your difficulty and part of your challenge here, why you want to get in there now? Because you know that those findings of the NTSB, whatever they will be, cannot be brought to bear in a lawsuit.
The findings of the NTSB are very, very valuable. However, they are not the last word. Different conclusions can be drawn from those findings. We are looking forward to those, and they will certainly be scrutinized by everyone in the country that has an interest not only in this catastrophe, but in preventing catastrophes from occurring in the future.
But am I right? Technically, am I right that they cannot be submitted evidence and you cannot call NTSB investigators to any kind of civil trial?
You cannot call NTSB investigators to express their opinions. However, their factual findings can be admitted into evidence. Their conclusions that they drew from those findings are generally not admissible.
Interesting.
So there's a distinction.
Do you've looked at, a lot of the stuff you talked about in terms of their inspections, what they knew, when they knew it, their timetable, all of that is kind of part of the public record already. It's on their website. I imagine you have folks and you have structural engineers that you've already hired to look at that. Do you have any preliminary beliefs about what happened here that you're willing to share?
Well, I do not have any meaningful conclusions as to what happened. I think that the facts that have already been disclosed reveal a lot. There are certain members of the bridge that are structurally critical. They were in a state of decay. There were cracks, and what role that played in this bridge collapse is going to be one of the big questions. There's issues about how much damage there was to the underlying concrete abutments, how much were they leaning before, what role did they play, what role did loading on the bridge play. There's an enormous amount of weight on that bridge. At the time this happened, there were massive amounts of concrete lane dividers on that bridge. There was a concrete manufacturing facility on that bridge. How was that weight distributed? I think at the end of the day, as is in the case of most mass disasters, it's a perfect storm. Several factors have to come together and pull these together for a disaster like this to occur. And it would be premature for anybody to have anything other than speculative ideas at this point. But there certainly are a lot of things that the NTSB is looking at and that we're looking at.
Given that we may be talking about a perfect storm, who are the potential defendants in this lawsuit? And by the way, do we call it a lawsuit yet?
I'm not aware of any lawsuit having been filed in this matter anywhere in the country to date.
We would call it a motion at this point that you are representing how many families?
We're representing several of the families that lost their loved ones and many of the folks that suffered serious injuries.
Can you tell us how many victims you're representing or families?
At this point, we're representing between 10 and 12.
10 and 12. Yeah. I'm sorry, deceased or
We're representing 5 families that have lost their loved ones and at least an equal amount of that have suffered serious injuries.
Okay. And you would call this, at this point, just a motion that you're representing these families? Obviously not a lawsuit yet, but would you call it a preparation for a lawsuit?
Our job is to determine if they have a valid basis for a claim against anyone who is responsible for causing this disaster, and to let our clients know if they do or do not have a valid basis to go ahead with the claim. If there's a valid basis determined by the experts that we have engaged, we will be proceeding with litigation. If there is not, we will not be.
So what's your next move as far as, can you appeal what the federal judge did today, or what do you do?
We don't have any plan to appeal that. We were told by the court that our avenue is to go through the NTSB and to ask for permission to go to the site. That's been done within the last 15 minutes. At least as of today, they have declined that permission. We will continue to try to deal with them and to negotiate a basis upon which our experts would be allowed to make a visit to that site.
Have they given any indication when that would be?
They have not given us any indication that they would allow anyone on that site at this point.
Has the NTSB allowed a situation like this to occur in the past? In other disaster situations, have they allowed private investigators on site, to your knowledge?
I don't know what their past history is. Every situation is different, of course. Oftentimes, they're involved in a situation where, such as a plane crash, where they do gather up and do save and do preserve all the evidence that's necessary for any experts in the future to take a look at. In this particular case, we deemed it was appropriate to have some experts on behalf of the victims present because it's not going to interfere with anything. It's not going to cause any difficulty in any of the rescue efforts or anything that they're doing to get a few more sets of eyes and ears looking at the evidence.